What's up, Bunters? We're back and with a new format today, an interview. Today, you don't have to just watch me kind of open packs in the app or lecture you on good trade etiquette. No, today we actually have someone who's a bona fide piece of bunt history here to answer some burning questions about the early days of bunt. So, yeah, without further ado, I want to welcome in the notorious Mike Salerno, aka Topps Mike. Mike, thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Scott. It's been really fun to think about my years at Topps the last few days. So excited to take some questions.
Awesome, awesome. So before we get started on your history with Bunt, just tell me a little bit about what you've been doing. I know everybody's curious. We did have a question from Gary that was wondering what's up with Tops Mike. So what have you been up to? I looked at your LinkedIn and it's just filled with jealousy, man. The kind of properties, the things you've been working in. I'm so jealous. But yeah, let us know what you've been doing.
Oh, well, thank you. That's nice of you. Yeah, I mean, candidly, I fell backwards into this entire mobile gaming industry with Topps. And then, just the things that we were doing. I was like, towards the end of my time there, I was like, I think I'm a product manager now. So, and EA seemed to agree, which was pretty cool. So I moved, I'm in Florida now, despite all the New York stuff that everyone still knows me from. I'm in the greater Orlando area. I was working for EA for a little while. I was working for Baseball America for a bit. I had a longer stint with NetherRealm Studios and WB Games working on Mortal Kombat, which was awesome. And I'm working on an NFT project now in the NFL with Mythical Games. So yeah, I've been very lucky to, much like when I was at Topps, I was the target audience. I am the target audience for a lot of the products I work on. And that makes it a heck of a lot easier. And so I liked to think when I was at Topps that I was one of the community, obviously not literally, but I was trying to be as empathetic with the folks that played the game as much as I could, and that's been something that's held true for the rest of my career so far. So I've been very lucky to work for a handful of really cool places.
And I think that focus, I think that's something that really came through on the app, and I think it's something we saw and we felt for sure, which is why everyone looks back at this area, this 2014 to 2016, so fondly. So you were there at Topps from 2013 to 2017. I think you even managed Bunt from 2014 to 2016. And again, those just, when longtime Bunt players look back, those are the years that they always think of most fondly. It was a completely different era. We're pre-app redesign, pre-Fanatics, which was an even bigger deal.
Right.
And you're just trying to get this relatively new app off the ground. Just can you go back in time and tell me what that was like? What were some of the struggles and questions your team were facing at the time, and sort of how big of a team you had, all of those things.
Yeah, so I'll go back even a little further than that. So I actually had a 2 week stint working with Topps, and this is in the Topps pennant era for the real OGs. Just working on stuff, and then I had taken a role with ESPN, so I moved up to Connecticut for about a year or so, and I remember making a good impression with the team there. And I told them, hey, look, if you guys are going to expand at some point, give me a call. I'll come back home. And so lo and behold, a year and change later, they did. And so I did. And it was November, actually, I think early next week would have been the date that I started with Topps full time. And then, yeah, it was, man, it was the Wild West. It was so much fun. There was, at that point, we had huddle and bunt and kick going. And when I tell you it was bootstraps and just throwing stuff at the wall, and I don't mean any of this in a negative way, but it was like we were so naive. The mobile gaming industry was so naive relative to what it is now, from a maturity standpoint. And so it was really just a matter of trying to literally learn you hear the term in digital industries, oh, well, it's a fast-paced team. No, man, this was as fast-paced got, because it was like, hey, we got an idea. We would whiteboard it, we'd talk about it, and then it was in the game like 90 minutes later. Not really in the QA era either. But yeah, so it was the best. It was just the crazy, by a lot still, the wackiest, craziest, most fun role I've had in my career so far.
When you were coming to Topps, were you excited about the digital aspect of it, or was there a part of you that wanted to be in the physical side? Because obviously these apps are just getting started, and maybe they might not have been on your radar at the time.
No, I was just thankful for the opportunity when I started, to be honest. And my mom sent me my Christmas list from like 2002 or something, and there was a Topps baseball card box on there, of course. So, no, man, I was just excited to be inside the doors, and I didn't care where, I didn't care physical, digital, whatever. I thought it was just so interesting and so cool, and I didn't stop to think about the ramifications of like what all it might. We were underpaid, overworked, and we didn't care. We were just having a blast doing it, to be totally honest. So we were just running as fast as we could, doing as much as we could.
Underpaid and overworked in New York City. So the good times to be
Well,
had.
yeah, not like that's unique.
Yeah, yeah, really. So tell me a little bit about the at the time, I'm sure there's a focus on getting more users into the app, right? Forever there's
Yeah.
going to be a focus on that, but especially then when it's still a relatively new app. What were some of the thoughts about how to approach this market and to get people that were physical collectors, which is still a battle today? You go
Oh,
to
for
the
sure.
message boards and you talk about Topps Bunt and you get ridiculed because it's
Yes.
pixels that you don't own. So what was that challenge like in 2013, 2014, and how'd you wrap your head around it?
Yeah, I remember doing a little bit of travel, like the national, and we went to some of all-star games and like the fan fests or whatever they call them. And yeah, it was very, what do you mean? Right. Well, I got a lot of like you who just farted faces,
Yeah, yeah.
like what are you talking about? And obviously, like now it's far more understood and adopted and accepted. But back then, geez, it was an uphill battle for sure. Breaking into an industry that, what we tried to do, that one of the executives who I to this day I speak very highly of, he was just such a visionary guy, but he always had that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was able to get the role because I was like, yeah, no, he was explaining what he wanted. I'm like, oh, you mean like Ultimate Team? He's like, yes. I'm like, yeah, I played all the time. I played in NHL, I played in FIFA. I was telling him how I was in Connecticut bored one night and I was buying FIFA points off a Russian account or whatever. Who does that sound like, right? And so yeah, I mean, like I said, I was one of the community for a long time. So I never focused on the naysayers or the people who didn't have much of an interest. It's like, all right, cool, that's fine, because we knew we were doing something pretty dope, and we knew that it would catch. Now, if you weren't about it or you wanted your cardboard, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I thought more was more. To be honest, I don't know that I agree with that across the board now, but back then it was no. This is cool. This is fun. There's much more than enough room for both.
In 2025, the app is just absolutely thriving. There'll be drops.
Good.
Sometimes on the outside you can actually tell how much Topps makes just based on the number of packs available and the amount that the packs cost, right? And you can see that Topps makes
Sure.
sometimes $100,000 off a single card in 3 hours, right? I mean, just insane numbers. In
Mhm.
2013, would you have thought that the app could be thriving still in 2025?
Yes, because I had no foresight, so I didn't know what 2025 would look like. But yes, I did. I believed in. Now the team that we had at the call it the heyday of that period there. If you told me that that team was still there, none of them are, including myself, obviously. I would have said 1,000,000% yes. There was just so much creativity and danger in a good way. Like we can create some crazy stuff here. So yeah, I would have absolutely said that. That's amazing to hear, by the way. I have not necessarily played any of the Topps games probably in years. I had to Google before we jumped on that Skate is no longer with us, which made me
Right.
very sad. That was my baby for a long time as well. But no, that's very encouraging to hear.
Yeah, and we're in a really exciting time right now where the NBA app is about to drop in the next 2 weeks, and then there's all sorts of rumors and such that Huddle's on its way back because Topps has the license back. So it'll be this time next year might be a golden era for addicts like myself. Uh, all of the options. To me, if I were a Topps employee, every single in-app purchase would feel like a tiny miracle. You all were able to convince people, me included, to give you money for pixels that we never own, just so we can look at them on our phone and maybe kind of use them in contests. Where today, at least, we get pretty mediocre prizes. I mean, did it at all feel crazy to you that so many people were consistently giving money for these digital cards?
Maybe a little bit if we were moving, if we ever stopped to think about it. One, we didn't. And two, no, because it wasn't just, and look, I mean, if Topps wants a calling card, here it is. It wasn't just pixels on your phone. Everybody would reduce it to that. That was so minimalist. It's ridiculous. What that game was, and I'm sure still is it was a community. You got to go into the articles and the comments. I just pulled this Mike Trout or Jeter or whoever, right? And then this idiot Topps Mike would be in the comments talking to people, being sarcastic and kind of a jerk about the Yankees and whatever else, right? And so there was a sense of belonging there. Like you were saying earlier, like it was kind of like cast aside by the physical industry, and that only made that community stronger, and it kind of fortified it. So no, I reject that it was just pixels on a phone. Yeah, I know it was, but there was so much more to the app and to the community. I've been a part of a few game communities since, but man, that was an experience that I cut my teeth with, and I've learned so much about a little bit of what not to do, but it was one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life for sure.
I bet. So as an outsider and someone who wasn't on Bunt in 2014, wasn't on Bunt when you were there, to me, it sounds like the app was really focused on contests and users kind of utilizing the cards they acquired as a way to win prizes. And back then, some really cool prizes. Before we jumped on, we were talking about some of the really cool prizes that unique prizes that you all gave out. Which one is right there? Yes. Today, contests still exist, and there's a significant portion of the community that plays contests, but it feels much more collector focused and more a mirror of physical card collecting. It's more geared towards getting users to chase rare, potentially valuable cards than getting them to chase sort of high boost cards for contests. Can you remember what sort of balance you and the team were trying to strike from 2014 to 2016? What was your main focus, creating and facilitating contests with cool prizes to drive engagement? And how much did you think about these as sort of collector items?
Um, yeah, I think that there's definitely 2025, Mike would say, yes, we should have been making more prizes to drive engagement, to get more retention, to get more monetization, KPI, blah, 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 right?
Mhm.
But back then, sort of. What you have to remember is you kind of have to take that any decision that was made with that snapshot in time, right? And so what was happening back then? The DFS, daily fantasy boom was kind of really coming online with DraftKings and FanDuel. And not only that, it was in court. Now it's the sponsor for every major league, right? But then it was like, oh, is that gambling? Like
Mhm.
there was I remember we were on the precipice of we were just following in their wake, really, right? But it's a game of skill, not a game of chance. And then therefore, because of that, which is the argument that they made. So that was me well, not me, but that was us as a team basically doing the same thing. Now, the wrinkle that we had, and I thought that there was beauty in this. I don't even know if it was initially intentional, but you could use more than one. I don't know if it's still like this, but you could use more than one instance of a player card in a contest, meaning I had 9 Mike Trouts, which meant we got to sell you guys 9 Mike Trouts.
Right.
So that the wrinkles and the silliness, it was always meant to be this off the wall, goofy. I don't know, I meant to go back to that pennant bunt era. There was my first foray with bunt was I was a writer. I would write the articles for the AL East. And it was just goofy, stupid, engaging stuff. And so that's where bunt comes from, by the way. So it was really trying to play on, yeah, it's going to be a version of daily fantasy, but funny, silly, goofy, weird, wacky, whatever.
Mhm.
Insert adjective here.
And at what point did you begin to wrestle with the reality of the secondary market? Because I'm sure it wasn't very long after people would own these cars that they said, "Hey, I want to try to make some money off of these." Was it immediate? Did it pick up more towards the end of your tenure? And sort of, I'm curious about your mindset and just sort of the Topps official line mindset. I know it's
Yeah.
obviously this sort of murky gray legal area for everybody.
That's the perfect way to put it. Um, and I've worked on a number of products since that have had secondary markets, both legitimate and illegitimate, or quote unquote illegitimate. The fact of the matter is that a healthy secondary market is good for your product. It just is. because that is a proof of concept, if nothing else, right?
Mhm.
Like, yes, we've got this fortified, cool community that I was just waxing poetic about, but actually, there's real world value for these JPEGs, right? So hold on a minute, maybe it's not so silly after all, huh, folks? So that's kind of we wrestled with that a lot, right? That's exactly how I would say that, because it's difficult to, at scale, it was impossible. But in instances, you're like, that's a really important piece of the viability of the business. And I don't just mean Topps. I mean like I was mentioning before, I have, don't yell at me, EA. I bought FIFA points from some Russian person or whatever. I should not have given my credit card information to probably. But so that's kind of a thing where, like, man, it's tough. It's really tough. And so from somebody, you'll never hear somebody who's employed by one of these companies who don't have a legitimate secondary market, and it's kind of like this quote unquote black market ish type thing. They will never say a nice word about it, because that's opening Pandora's box.
Right.
And what you're trying to do, EA has done this with their games. Mythical is an NFT it's a Web3 game, so you've got a whole secondary market. If it's controlled by the house, well, then it's wonderful, and we get a cut of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really, all Topps got to do was benefit from the quote unquote proof of concept and sort of free marketing, because you would get people on eBay who would buy these cards and whatever, and some people for sure, I'm certain, thought they were buying physical cards. They're like, oh, I've never seen that one before. Yeah, because
Still
we just had
happens.
that idea for a card set yesterday, and it's in the game today, right? And so that was always one of the advantages that we had. We were so flying by the seat of our pants, really, that we were able to put stuff in the game so quickly. This is a true story, especially for like unique events. I forget what we called them, like the milestone type cards. I had to leave bars sometimes. Like, I'd be out, I never went more than 3 to 5 blocks away from my shitty apartment in Queens, because I remember I was at the bar down the street, and I think it was Madison Bumgarner. It was in the 7th inning, and you grow up, you root for like cool stuff, perfect games, no hitters, somebody hits for the cycle. I ended up finding myself rooting against these things, because I'm like, God damn it, I just got a burger. I just want to sit here. Madison Bumgarner's in the 8th inning. That's a true story. There were multiple times where I had to cancel dates, or I left dates early with the old heads will remember Topps Jess, who is now Mrs. Topps Jess. A nice update for everybody there. But yeah, no, there was times where she was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And I'm like, I promise, I'm sorry. If I don't get this out by 10 p.m., I'm gonna yell at myself. So, but it was. And let me clarify that it wasn't like somebody's gonna yell at me for that. That we felt it. We felt we owed it to the community. And I don't know that this was ever said anywhere, but we were doing Topps Now like a year and a half before they were. So congratulations on stealing our idea. But yeah, that's as that's as controversial as I'm gonna get, I promise. But yeah, it's just we felt it. We owed it to the community to do things like that and to be as engaging as possible.
So much there. One, I mean, Topps Now
Yeah, it
is
was.
now just a insanely lucrative,
Yes.
line for the Topps physical product, and yeah, it came from Bunt. That's so cool to hear. Two, the sliding doors aspect of Topps Mike's life. If Madison Bumgarner just gives up some hits and he doesn't miss these dates, and it's
No, they were all with Topps Jess, so she was very understanding and still is, and deals with all my nonsense still to this day.
That's
So
that's good. So one serious thing that I was thinking about there is I'm curious when we talked about the secondary market, where were you getting, or where would pressure come from more? Would the pressure come from a legal aspect? We need to control this, like black market, or was it more of we need to find a way to make profit, like the way EA does with Mutt and
right.
NBA, why can't I think of the NBA game right now? But yeah, the way they do as well. Is was which way was there sort of pressure?
We had to really, you can't control it, right? Anything that happens outside of your game, you can't control.
Yeah.
So to try to is kind of silly, to be totally honest. What we needed to make sure we did was manage and maintain the legitimacy of the in-app experience for all of our users.
Hmm.
And that, it goes back to what I was just saying, but at the same time, you'd be a fool. It's whack-a-mole out there. Once it's the same as the YouTube TV stuff, right? It's like, oh, there's Stream East is coming back, or this site is coming back.
Hmm.
So it's crazy to try and keep up with those Joneses because it's impossible. But no, we always try to legitimize our game as best we can, and obviously make sure that we are our games IAPs and sales weren't being threatened in any way, which I don't know that they ever really were. But no, it was like I said, it was kind of a dual-edged sword. It was an annoyance. It was not the worst thing in the world. A little bit of cheating is kind of actually healthy because it means people give a shit enough to do
Right, right.
this.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to say like we looked the other because I don't think we did, but it was you know it was like this wasn't the worst thing, and then it was like okay, no, now at a certain point, but managing people's accounts that were bad actors, right? If it was
Right.
very clear, yeah, of course we're gonna do something in the game, but outside of the game, there's nothing we can do about
A perfect segue here because you're bringing up now the most hotly contested issue of Bunt
it. Uh-oh.
2025. So yeah, the biggest issue I think today for anyone that's on the app is Topps Fanatics kind of has this quick trigger with banning accounts for ambiguous tops terms of service violations, TOS violations.
Mhm.
I would say, to your point, I think the app, a large reason the app exists or thrives is because of the existence of this secondary market. Every single sale on
Okay.
the secondary market, whether it's a full account someone just sold or just one card, it just naturally inherently violates that terms of service in some way.
Sure.
And I think what frustrates the user base most, and again, I'm totally understanding you haven't opened the app in 8 years or whatever it's been,
Right.
but or been associated with Tops in that long. But what frustrates the user base most is that the lack of communication and transparency in the process. Users get banned, they contact customer service, and they get some sort of canned, automated, unhelpful response. And it's especially frustrating when you see guys with these $10,000, $50,000 accounts, just massive, and it's the kind of monetary loss that can like end a marriage, and they just have no recourse. They have no way to get these accounts and this money back. And so I'm just curious, like how you all wrestled with that aspect of it. Did you ban a lot of accounts? Was it something that you thought of, seriously? I'm curious, did you use like an automated process to sort of flag those accounts? Like how did you handle this issue of the bad actors or, however you want to define a bad actor in the environment?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't want to speak for them at all, certainly since Fanatics took over, because they definitely have a heck of a lot more resources than we did.
I'm
And I
sure.
can, with absolutely no information, I can promise that that's probably the case. And so I don't know what types of automated tools they may or may not be using. I can speak to it was always because if I had more than 10 downtime minutes, I would be in the chat and goofing around. So it was always guys that like would kind of overstep a line there within the chat. But that as far as like and it was always like strike one, strike two. Like it wasn't really like swinging the band hammer because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's really it goes back to that really hard gray area to like where is the line, and it's I'm not even speaking for Tops or Bunt anymore. Like it's like the games I've worked on. There's going to be people who are going to try and get one up, game the system, have found something. In my experience at other studios, it's the people who have found a hole in the boat that I actually will work with a little bit. And again, I'm not speaking for Tops at all here, but like help me find a way. It's almost like
Mm.
when like NSA is like, oh, we found a loop in the security here. Hire that guy, right? Like I'm not saying necessarily to that extent, but like those people can help you find problems that, yeah, okay, that's an issue. We're gonna have to shore that up. But like, all right, look, man, we see you. It's hard to, like I said, it's hard to legislate at scale. But when some of those people are doing type bad actor type stuff, sometimes it's to the value of the greater good. So then you get into like morality of it all, and you're like, oh, geez. Um, but yeah, it's really what it really does all boil back to, and it's true from my time at Tops and every other game since, is trying to make the most safe and enjoyable experience for the entire user base. So if that means slapping a guy in the wrist when he probably should have got thrown out on his behind, maybe that's for the greater good. And I'm speaking generically, not in any specific cases, of course, but Yeah.
So now, yeah, and that's what makes it such a fun conversation. There's not a great answer. I fully empathize with Tops on this, but I also, when you see the kinds of money that's at stake
Of
here,
course.
it can get frustrating. So you were there pre NFTs. Do you have any
Yes.
thoughts about sort of, because obviously what's at the crux of that discussion is ownership of who owns those cards, and obviously Topps owns all of these pixels. But do you have any thoughts? Were there any thoughts at the time about giving ownership of any of the bunt cards to the community and how that might work, or was that 2 or 3 years too early, maybe?
It was probably a little too early. And as far as the product roadmap is concerned, early on at least, I was so focused on the day to day with Bunt and what content was coming out and what was next and all that stuff that I hadn't really graduated, if you will, to that level of strategy yet. I suppose towards the end there was some discussion about it, but I don't really remember because honestly, we were going 75 on the highway, and then this thing called Star Wars Card Trader came around, and it was like, phew, you're like, what the hell was that thing? And that was, oh, I don't know, the most anticipated movie release in human history in 2015. But yeah, so I mean, it wasn't just a bunt specific conversation anymore. At that point, we had bunt huddles, Bunt Huddle Kick, Star Wars, and then UFC. I don't remember. I don't know if that's still around. Skate, which was like I said, that was my baby, and then WWE, which I think is still around. So there was. It became much more of a global conversation because if you're going to do for one, you have to do for all, right?
Hmm.
So I don't know. And then the other thing with that is like you're then just right there. You're dealing with MLB, NFL, NHL, Star or Lucasfilm, and whoever else. So you almost needed to get buy-in across all of these. So I don't really know. Like I wasn't in those conversations really.
Yeah. Um, how much of what was happening in the bunt community outside of the app, so within these Facebook groups or Reddit or wherever, were you all aware of? Did you know certain users? Did you have, internally, you curse one per, you have your favorites and your least favorites? Did you ever join those groups? I'm just curious what you all knew from the outside.
Hiding in plain sight was important, I think, and for no other reason than understanding what the community wanted. And I mean like truly,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's been something I've taken with me and done at every other stop so far, whether it's a Discord or Reddit or you name it, right? And like, yes, I was in a few of them. I had burner accounts in a few of them because I didn't want my own stupid nonsense on my own Facebook getting leaked or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yes, that's important, right? Like, and it's all in service of the users and all in service of the fans. So and all in the attempt of trying to make the best content possible to service those fans. So yeah, I've done that at NetherRealm. I've done that at Mythical. A little more forward facing at Mythical, but yeah, no. Every other stop I've been at, that's something I've kind of taken with me, which is funny because I've been that person for most of my. I remember being on NCAA football message boards in like 2002, so you know what I mean. I had a great idea for the college football playoff
Yeah.
year. I was way ahead of my time, but yeah, so yeah, yes, but again, always there was no nefariousness behind it. It was always trying to like not like we're looking for sleeper cells. We're just trying to understand what you guys wanted.
Sure, sure. Did you have like, I feel like I've seen that there were like in the game there were like Topps mic accounts and things like that. Like there were sort of Topps account with cards in them.
Yes.
Did you ever have like your own personal account? Did you have your own little
Yep.
collection? Yeah, as well.
Yeah, I did. So that was also one way we used to like to give rewards as well. So Hanford had one. By the way, I still talk to Hanford all the time. He's doing awesome.
Awesome.
And I actually texted him right before we jumped on. He didn't get back to me yet though. But if he does, I'll interrupt myself. But yeah, so and again, like I said, it was all more or less in service to the fan. And one of the things that one of the edicts early on was like everybody should have like because Bunt was built off of these like goofy, wacky personalities. A lot of it, like one of the characters was based off of like Bob Uecker, rest his soul. What a gem, right? Like it was the Bob Uecker in Major League was like the tone that the game was trying to hit. I'm certain that that's changed over the years, but that's kind of what it was became or it started as, I should say. So yeah, we had our own accounts, and that's how I would go into the game and goof around and chat with everybody in the comments and all that. But yeah, it was a really it was a wacky, interesting time. But it wasn't like I was trying to withhold cards. Everybody could see my collection. Um, there were some that like I'm struggling to figure it out, but it was much more manual than it is now, I'm sure. But like it was a way to provide specific rewards to people for like the VIP cards, right?
Mhm.
Like that was like, hey, I'm going to give it to me and I'm going to trade it to you. So that way it was very specifically curated for this person, as an example.
Did you have like looking back, can you remember any specific sets or cards from that era that you thought were really cool that you tried to own?
Yeah, I was. Oh, for sure. I never touched anything that was numbered, or probably not never, but like the Derek Jeter set was. I was like, when he was retiring, I'm like, nobody talk to me. I'm having a bad day. I'm doing this. Okay. So the Derek Jeter set in 2014 was my idea from beginning to end. But I was at my parents' house recently, and the postseason heroes. I saw this Reggie Jackson card, and obviously big Yanks fan, all that. But I loved that set, and so that was one thing that I remember. We made that set in the game. I want to say the 2015, either the 2014 or 2015, or maybe both postseasons. That was like the whatever Topps now, whatever we called it. That was like the reactive type cards. And I it was awesome because I was home in New York, I don't know, a month or two ago, and I was like, oh my God. And it's so cool that you got in touch with me because I had that like nostalgia hit. And it wasn't really that card set, it was Bunt, you know. So yes, that is by a lot my favorite one that we've made. And I'll say the Jeter one that I might have had a tear running down my face producing those is a very close second.
Um, is there a feature that you're surprised didn't catch on? Something that like you guys worked all winter on that you were ready to release in Bunt 16 and then somehow it just didn't catch on.
Hmm. It's hard to think back in the specific features, but I remember I was the one that pitched the color variants initially,
Oh.
because basically I was like, hey, we're gonna need a lot more content than this. Why don't we just 5x this? Like, why don't we just make five? The physical cards do it. Why don't we do it? So
Hmm.
that was one. But no, I don't know. But that also had the implications with on contests too. So obviously there was value in the scoring based on rarity. But no, I don't have a good one. I'll think if I come up with one, we'll come back to it.
Okay. Okay. Looking back, just generally, I'd love to hear just what are your sort of favorite memories or stories from that time? Things just give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain there of what was
Oh yeah.
happening at Tops, in New York City at the time.
Yeah, we were just, man, when I tell you, like I said, we were just having a blast doing it. We really did. It was a tight group. We worked really hard, but we just had a blast doing it. There were dumb like pop culture things that would come out. We would just have so much fun with it. And I vividly remember in the Tops building that we the head of HR was right. Her office was like right, like on the other side of our cubicles. And anytime we got a little too rowdy or a little too ridiculous or whatever, we would just hear the and her door would close. She was the best. And just and you know what, kind of a ball buster herself, one of the cooler people I've ever met in HR. But that was like the her polite way of like, hey, turn it, calm it down, fellas. So no, I don't have any specific. I gotta think of it, but like, yeah, like stupid email chains and goofy stuff. But like,
Mhm.
that's. I think the tone came through in the game. That's how it was in the office. We were goofing around and working late, eating pizza and whatever else. And there was in the same building, like just technically a street away, but in the same building, there was like a crappy Irish bar we would always go hang out at afterwards. I used to actually, as a funny, so I used to check if I lived in Queens. If the Mets were home, I would work late because I didn't want to deal with the 7 train with all the Mets fans on it. So I would either work late or be at that bar. So that was always in the summer. But no, man, it was like I said, it was just one of the most fulfilling times in my career that I had no idea that I was going to be doing this 10 years later. So yeah, it was a very I have some great relationships with a lot of the folks I work with, some not so great relationships with some of the folks I work with, but even still, like even those folks, I'm thankful for the opportunity that they gave me because I got a journalism degree, man. What the hell am I doing? So I got to break into this industry, by accident, and I'm thankful for pretty much every step of the way.
I mean, and it sounds like at the very least you got a wife out of it, right?
I certainly did.
So
Yeah. All right, here's a funny one then. So yes, I used to do like meet Topps Mike things, specifically like at Yankee games. And when we went to events too, and like if you came and said hi or whatever, I'd give you a bunch of coins in the game. And so we were dating a few months at this point, and I take her to a Yankee game, and I put the bat signal out there. Hey, I'm going to be in this. I didn't say my seat, but I said like down the right field line. I'm wearing this hat and the Yankees Jeter away jersey, whatever. And so I'm like on like the chicken finger line or whatever it was, and I hear like a little kid go like, "Hey, Topps Mike," and the guy next to me online, I didn't know him, goes, "Are you famous?" I go, "Yeah, dude." and but she was standing next to me. She's like, "Oh my god, is he like a big deal?" Very much no, very much no. But I got to look cool.
in this
Yes. Oh,
community,
yeah. Right. But
yeah.
I got to look pretty cool to Top Jess early on. But she
Yeah.
quickly understood that I'm very much a well-intended idiot.
All right, so I'll end here with some community source questions. So I went to our big Facebook group and I asked some folks for some questions from somebody that was with Bunt back in the day, and here's some that came through. Austin Gilkinson, he asked about sort of the inspiration for the digital exclusive designs, and I'm curious about that too. You obviously worked with designers at the time, or one designer or multiple designers, I don't know, but what was that relationship like, and how was the collaboration when between you and the graphic designers when you're creating new cards?
Yeah, so S. Preston comes to mind, which he's had a long relationship with Fanatics now, I guess, or Tops. That was my manager. He was always really, really. That's actually the reason for the bobblehead. He was always Mr. Bobblehead. You should have seen his office. It's got more bobbleheads than dumb stuff on the walls behind me. So yeah, he was always on the front foot with that. He was great with like trying to make friends in high places and try to see what we could get out of it. Not just a bobblehead for his collection, but like what other stuff we could do in the game. I'm blanking on other examples, but anytime there was a seemingly third party designer, if you will, that's basically what that was.
Yeah. Joe Perry. Joe's a big contest player, has always been a big contest player with Bun. He asks about sort of, if you can remember, why there was a switch from reactive to predictive scoring. And also he asked about the decision to switch from building, some of this could have been after but about the switch from building a deck daily versus just having all of your cards available. What were you around for those decisions? I'd be curious about those conversations.
Yeah, I think I was. I think he's referring. Yeah, okay. To harken back to the daily fantasy thing, there was an initiative to, as we kind of call it, like set and forget, because you had the community who were, the industry term is whales, who had like nine of everything, and they were ahead of the feeds or they were ahead of the TV feed sometimes. They're like, oh, Mike Trout's up, so we're gonna put all our Mike Trout in, and then this player, and then this player, and they're watching 7, 8 games a night, and I say this with love and I'm impressed. Lunatics,
Mhm.
absolute crazy people, right?
They still exist, yes.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, in my own ways, I'm like that too. But so it made it really, really hard when you asked about like acquiring new users and fans. If I'm coming in and I don't have that much of a collection and I'm kind of new, it's incredibly hard for me to keep up with that. In
Mhm.
fact, it's impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily my call, but I think that was kind of the idea. It was trying to widen the base, I suppose, and make it a little bit more welcoming. If I remember correctly, we tried to do both for some degree of time, but it's a long time ago. I don't remember exactly.
No, that makes sense, and I can see, when we think about this group, what I'm asking the group that I'm in here to think about the fact that we are all these sort of just Uber players, right?
Right.
And we don't think much about the people that are just joining. And obviously, as an employee of Topps, it's your job to think about how to make this game most welcoming to everyone.
Yeah.
And so that I'm sure those are issues that you wrestle with that we don't even, we can't put ourselves back into that space anymore. Yeah. So that's really helpful perspective to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the other thing that's interesting, you to go back to like the communities and like the private Facebook groups and the Discords and all that. That's casuals don't join these types of things,
True.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so to have a healthy game, you need a lot more casuals than you do crazies. And so, and I say again, I say that term with affection. But so that's kind of where you have to be really careful in when you're working on these game teams. And I still experience it today, where like this the squeakiest wheel doesn't shouldn't always get the oil, I suppose, right? Because
Mhm.
what's good for one may not be necessarily good for 10,000, 20,000, however many people. So that's more just globally with the mobile gaming community. But yeah, I totally understand that a lot of people come from it from their from either what they may seem as a collective opinion, but it really, I mean, what they don't see, and I'm not speaking for Topps, but what they don't see is like any amount of data really behind it, right?
Right.
So like, yeah, no, you're right. It's affecting you and your 10 friends and however many, I don't mean, whatever, pick a number you want. But yeah, that's what's healthiest for the game. Because at the end of the day, if the game is falling over, then there's no community to hang around in. So that was always
Absolutely.
the tug of war, I guess, whenever I would be hanging out with it. And again, not just the Bunt community, any community since.
Saved the best one here from the community for last here. This is Gary Talamini. He asks, "Is Hanford still doing stand up? And what became of Topps Mike? We're finding out right now, Gary, and Topps Ian." He says, and I think this is really good. He says there used to be a sense of community on the app and with the Topps team. Why did they depart from that? It's obvious that one of the things people loved in the early days is that sense of community. There's this warm feeling connected to 2014 to 2016, and you even see it manifest itself in the app in certain ways, like Diamond VIPs, where the collector got to choose the player they wanted. The
Yep.
famous Leo Bryan 101 legendary, where we actually have a bunt user in the game, which is so cool. And really since Fanatics took over, there's this, it feels like, at least to the community, there's this 1,000 foot high barrier that's just separating the community from the Bunt staff. So it feels cold and transactional. And that sense of community is now found in the secondary market on Facebook and Reddit. So I know you've been on the outside for a while, but I am curious if, to some of Gary's questions, right? Of course, we want to know about if Hanford is still doing stand up and what became of Topsy Inn and all of that. But also, I'm curious, was building that community feel intentional at the time? And do you have any guesses, of why Topps Fanatics may be pivoting away from that sort of community interaction in recent years?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that that's how it felt. That's what we were going for. We tried to make it a unique experience in a really weird and new space. I can't say anything as to why they might be have done anything from the time I left the building from the last
Sure,
time.
sure.
What I will say is that I've seen a couple of really good community managers, a couple. It's hard. It's really hard. And let me be very clear. You have no idea what this conversation is doing for my ego, but it was not all sunshine and roses. Okay. Like there were times where like I would be busting my hump trying to make a card or whatever, and I would do something wrong or whatever. And then the community would jump on my back and I would recall like it's not a sustainable thing, right?
Mhm.
Like so I shouldn't say that necessarily, but like it's just hard to cultivate that. And so if you can't do it well, don't do it, I guess would be my
Mhm.
unsolicited advice
Mhm.
to insert game here. Games are built on communities significantly, right? And so but if it games are built on, is it fun? That's question number one. If it's not fun, nobody's gonna play it. And two, is there a community to hang out in and feel this sense of belonging? And many games, console, mobile, whatever, have that. I strongly feel that we had that, and I strongly feel that me and Hanford and Ian's doing great. We're a big part of that. All there was a lot of magic in those walls when we were in those years, and I'm not saying there's still not. I couldn't tell you. Um, I just know that all of the magic I know was there is no longer there. And so especially when you establish something. The people that are there now, by all accounts, are probably smarter. In fact, 100% smarter, more seasoned than we were then, guaranteed, and are more proficient at doing the jobs that they're being charged with doing. But I don't know that it measures up to the exact expectations that a Gary or Austin might have from a handful of years ago. And in defense of who is there, listen to this. Like, how am I supposed to know what happened from 2014 to 2017? Like, I was in college then, or I was working at this place then, or whatever. I don't know. So there's only so much you can really surmise and try to replicate. And then you don't want to come off as phony. The last thing you want to do is that. So, yeah, no, we had a really great few years there. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but yeah, it's really hard to replicate, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I do. I had one thought come up that I just wanted to ask you on that I hadn't thought about ahead of time, but I am curious about is, was there any discussion back then at all about the sort of addictive nature of the app? I mean, it is legitimately addicting. Like I at times
Sure.
have an addiction. There are people in these groups who, they overspend and then they've got to sell everything and get back to even. And there's this addiction. Was there any thought about that ever of, I don't know, a warning in the game or call 1-800 gambler help type deal? Was there, or does that open up a whole element of other legal issues that you all wanted to kind of stay away from?
Yeah. So I mentioned the woman in HR was right near us. Legal was much further down the hall, and we liked that. We were like, "Hey, man, we're good." No, what I'll say is, in no way at any point was there any nefarious activity whatsoever. I promise. Um, Also, think about how the world has changed in 10 years, not just with daily fantasy. I was like, that was like the legal battle in the news back then. Well, now, right now, it's, you've got to have responsible gaming tabs on FanDuel's homepage or something
Hmm.
like that, right?
Hmm.
And so the world has changed dramatically. I would say that we weren't by any means first in that. I think EA probably threw the first stone there with Ultimate Team, but yeah, I mean, we were never trying to, to ruin anyone's life, certainly,
Sure,
but
sure.
no, I don't. Certainly at the level I was at, it never came up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that there was, yeah. But again, I think that there was, at a certain point you have to trust people to do the right thing for them. And because it's similar to the secondary market thing. Like, well, how do you, it's such a sliding scale of what you should do, what you shouldn't. And then, so when you start to put legislation on something, that's actually when you can trip up very quickly.
Mhm.
So the less said, the better sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like a ridiculous thing to say, but I mean, it is legitimately addicting. So, all right, let's go into the last part of this here. I'd love to get your thought because as somebody, again, who I was so jealous of going through that LinkedIn, you obviously have a long history in the industry. What do you envision for the future of mobile gaming? Not even specifically Bunt, because obviously, like you said, you,
Yeah.
you haven't picked it up much, but just mobile games in general. What does the future look like?
Oh man, it is a minefield out there, I can tell you. I mean, if you go on LinkedIn, if you just refresh, you hear about a different studio laying people off. It's ugly times out there. And frankly, I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Think about the last 5 years, right? Like, and again, none of this has to do with the tops at all, but like during the pandemic, it was almost like shooting fish in a barrel. I don't mean to be, crass there, but like captive audience. And so gaming kind of went through the roof. And candidly, I think a lot of companies got a little big for their britches and out over their skis, and insert metaphor here. So when the kind of the normalcy somewhat returned, um, not only was there an aggressive shift to, and this is as much about console gaming as it is mobile, but like there was an aggressive shift to live operations and microtransactions and all of that. That I think everybody thought they could make the next Fortnite, and they can't. So, so much so that, like, I mean, how many IP do you see being in Fortnite? I saw all of Springfield was in there the other day from The Simpsons, right? So, um, when there's one giant in the industry and you're trying to just replace the giant, it's not exactly even David versus Goliath. Like, why are you even showing up? So, a lot of people chased that, and a lot of questionable decisions were made. I mean, you look at, you know, my favorite example of this, and I say this with true affection for the games, was the Batman Arkham series. Unbelievable talent at that studio. I got to briefly rub elbows with them a little bit in my time at WB. Tremendously talented people, and I can, that Suicide Squad game sucked, right? Like in every way, soup to nuts. And that's not a reflection to me in any way of that studio. And I think a lot of gamers and a lot of fans of that Arkham series feel the same way. They're like, all right, they were just following orders, as they say, right? And so I think that there's some, I don't know this, but I was watching a video the other day. Like there's other stuff in the works, but they're like, oh, good, Rocksteady's making it. Oh, cool. And that is the light at the end of the tunnel for me. That gamers still see who the best developers have been historically over the last 15, 20 years. And I think there's hope that the industry will kind of catch itself or recorrect. And then as a result of that, you'll start to get some absolute masterpieces like that, like the Arkham series was, for an example.
Do you, just curious, do you at all? I know you mentioned Madden, and you mentioned you were in like Reddit groups for college football. Do you play Mutt? Do you play Cut? Do you play Diamond Dynasty for MLB The Show? Things like that?
I used to play Diamond Dynasty ridiculously. Yeah, no, and I used to like say that because they have a marketplace in the game, right? And I used to say if I could run my personal investments half as good as I managed my team in Diamond Dynasty, I'd have been my LinkedIn wouldn't look half as good. I'd be on a beach somewhere. Um, but yeah, I haven't played the show in a few years. Honestly, this is gonna sound sacrilegious, but I've kind of fallen out of love with baseball a little bit. It's gotten a little too droll with me. Like I just love a good base hit to the opposite field. I don't know, call me crazy, but the shift and all that stuff has gotten it's death by a thousand paper cuts. But that's another conversation we'll have another time. But
Sure, sure, sure.
yeah, I play college football incessantly,
Mhm.
too much. But I don't play it. I don't play any of the ultimate teams just because I can't keep up with it. I
It's so
have two
expensive.
two kids now, so it's the expensive piece. It's the time consumingness. I never really used to spend that much money in Diamond Dynasty, but it was an insane amount of time. Like
Yeah.
go outside and touch grass, Mike. So yeah, it was. I play a handful of games, mostly college football these days, but I don't mess with the card building modes anymore. It's work for me now.
That makes sense. All right. Do you have any final thoughts on your time at Bunt or anything you want to say to the Bunt community before I let you go?
I never really got to say thank you, so I can't say that enough. A dumb kid in his mid 20s who I didn't know his ass from his elbow. Uh, we had something really special, and it's continued to mean a lot to me. I've made friends that have lasted 10 years so far until I mess it up saying something stupid. But no, it's like I said, I texted Hanford before. He's doing really well. It changed a lot of people's lives, and I don't know that everybody knows that. And yeah, just thank you. There's a lot of, like I said, I struggle to come up with specific anecdotal stories, but man, I can still hear the halls laughing from all the goofy shit we used to do and try and laugh with each other. And there was no egos there. It was just, really good friends. So we were happy to produce the experience that we were for you guys, and we were damn proud of it.
Well, on behalf of the Bunt community, thank you to you and the team back then. You've created something that has persisted, and that, again, like I said, is just addicting and an amazing game, an amazing escape from everybody's daily lives. So it's a really great thing you did. So thank you also for joining me here today. This was so fun to get to talk to you and to hear a little bit about your experience with Bunt back in the day. Really appreciate that, folks. Don't forget, I'd love to hear you comment. Let me know what you think about today's conversation here with the great Topps Mike. What did we miss out on? What should I have asked him? Would love to hear what you have to say. Comment, like, follow, all that good stuff, and we will talk again soon. Thanks so much for your time.